what was I going to show you? I was going to show you a drone. Here, check this guy out. He has no stinger. He's all dried out. See the big buggy eyes up at the top? He's got a round, hairy abdomen. He's cool. Not everybody collects dried bees, folks. You might have noticed my bee calendar. You know, a lot of guys have calendars with ladies on them in swimsuits, maybe less. Not me. No, I've got bees.
So I've seen bees like stuck to the fence and then they end up being all hollowed out. That must be the drone that got glued to the fence.
Very possible. You guys want to have a look? This is a drone. I think I did tell you about propolis being used for cancer research. A lot of the guys in my club, particularly the older gentlemen, they're usually of Scandinavian or European descent, will make a tincture with the propolis. They make kind of a tea with grain alcohol or vodka. And when they're feeling a little cold coming on or they're feeling a little scratchy, they spray the stuff in the back of their throat or they'll take a shot of it and it makes them feel better. Could be the alcohol, folks. But, and there's a lot to be said for placebos. But the last lady who was in the last class, she was from Russia, and she says, oh, no, this really works. And I believe her. There's really magic stuff that goes on with the stuff that comes out of your beehive. So it's a fun hobby. I really encourage it. You know, you will get stung. And, you know, it's no fun. Nobody likes it. And God, I don't like to see a kid get stung, and I'm really sorry, sweetheart, but you seem to be doing better now. I'm glad. But if you become a beekeeper, you know, no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, that's going to happen every once in a while, and you just got to be brave about it. And you don't seem to be doing too bad. Is her ear swelling up at all?
A tiny bit.
A tiny bit's okay.
This is worse than a tiger bite.
Yeah.
She got bitten by a tiger.
Really?
Really.
A real tiger? How did that happen? I want to hear this.
We were in Thailand where you can go and play with the tigers, and we were playing with baby tigers, and one didn't like that she turned away for a minute and wasn't paying attention, so it went, pay attention to me, and as it did that, it got a little scratch on her thigh.
And so this was worse than the tiger bite?
Hurt more.
Yeah. Is it still hurting? It should be starting to calm down.
It's better.
Good. All right. Well, I'm glad you're doing all right. That's something you know, especially with kids. I mean, I'm sorry that happened, but you know, it is. It's one of the hazards you're going to run into in beekeeping. And the other thing is just be aware of your neighbors. Be a good neighbor, and if your bees are getting out of control or somebody is not comfortable with your bees, there are other ways to keep your bees. I find that there are so many people that would love to have me keeping bees on their properties that I run out of bees. So
how do you find those people? Who
simple.
are they?
I'm one. Right here, I'm one.
It's actually very, very easy. Put up a notice at your local bulletin board. One up here at Roberts, you know, usually there's some place where you can post something. Local beekeeper looking for some place to keep bees. You'll have somebody within a week. I bet my last penny on it. I get calls almost daily with people, would you put a hive on my property? And I'm out of bees. I'm out of beehives. I can't keep as many bees as I could possibly place on other people's properties. I'm going to have to start hiring people to do it.
These are farmers, or?
Most of the people who come to me are master gardeners. They're just outdoor people. It's usually just somebody with a little bit of land. There's no real pattern in this neighborhood. If you were to draw a circle around my home, as little as a mile wide in radius, you'd run into 20 or 30 of my hives. Most of the people are master gardeners. All of them have beautiful gardens, whether they're doing it themselves or they've got somebody tended. I've got one guy up here within a few blocks, literally has a golf course in his backyard. I mean, just 3 or 4 holes, private. It's beautiful. It's set up like a. I've got 4 or 5 highs out there. There's some other people. Obviously, this is a neighborhood. If you go across the street, it's probably one of the wealthiest places in the United States. You could find dozens of my hives over there. Most of those people, they don't tend their own garden. They have somebody do it for them. But they want bees, and they think this is a cool thing. A lot of them have kids. And I happen to think, despite the occasional sting, that this is a wonderful thing to do for your kids. Some people, you might have kids and they just haven't, the learning light hasn't really gone on yet. You know, smart kid, but nothing's really punched their buttons. And all of a sudden there's bees in the yard, and bugs are cool. And so all of a sudden they're interested in the bugs, they're interested in science, science leads to math, and you never know when you just might have the next leading entomologist on your hands. So I love working with kids. Do a lot of it in local schools, brownies and Boy Scouts and all that stuff. Love working with adults too. Your attention span is much better. But kids, you know, if I can spend half hour, 45 minutes with them, put them in little tiny bee suits, I could show you some really cool video. Little kids hopping around in bee suits. I love it. And I think it's one of the best things you can do for kids, because like I said, you never know what's going to turn on that light, and all of a sudden a kid that may be struggling a little bit has turned on to something, and it leads to so much more and so much more learning. And I'm kind of a fan of non-traditional learning processes, for what it's worth. Yeah.
Does honey last indefinitely?
Yes.
Preserved?
Honey is the only food product that never spoils.
That's...
We have found honey in the Pharaoh's tombs, and it was still edible. I heard it didn't taste very good.
Yeah.
But it does. Honey doesn't spoil. Honey crystallizes, and that's its natural way of preserving itself. When your honey crystallizes, it is not going off. Just take it, put it in a pot of hot water. Don't boil it. Don't put it in a microwave. You don't want to cook your honey because it's full of live enzymes. They're good for your digestion. Now, you're not going to destroy your honey, but you lose some of the goodness, and it will change the flavor. So just take your bottle of honey, put it in a pot of hot water. You might have to cycle it once or twice, but it'll come right back. And different honeys crystallize at different rates. I have some orange blossom honey out here for you guys to try when we're done with the class. This honey will crystallize while you look at it. It's very high in glucose, and it's very prone to crystallization. It is wonderful to combine with some soy sauce. Okay? Use it as a glaze. Put it on your chicken. Put it on your fish. Put it on a pork chop. I'm a foodie, guys. I can't maintain this figure on cold beer alone. I have tried, but I am a foodie. Yeah.
How many different species are there of bees across the world here?
Oh gosh, there would be thousands. There are probably 100 different species of honeybees, and then throw in non-honey producing bees like bumblebees, tarpon bees, mason bees, sweet bees. Here in the Bay Area alone, we have about 75 different species of bees. But there's 2 major categories of honeybees. Queens, the gentle ones anyway, are the Italians and Carnolians. There are Russian bees. They're a bit defensive. Obviously, Africanized bees are defensive. So that they all have different traits. How well do they produce honey? How defensive are them? We try to breed for gentle bees and good honey producers and disease resistance. So the bees, in preparation for abandoning the hive, are going to engorge themselves in honey. And when they do that, they're so full, it's hard for them to bend their abdomen to sting you. So that's how the smoke works. The other thing I like to just impress upon people is you are playing with fire. If you're in a high fire danger area, be really careful. I always keep a fire extinguisher handy in my truck. If you don't have one and you have a problem, a can of pop works really good. Just poke a hole in it and shake it. Makes a pretty effective fire extinguisher in an emergency. So that's your MacGyver trick for today. if you can, don't smoke your bees. I mean, if you're out there and it's really high fire danger, don't take the chance. Suit up, get your gloves on, work carefully, work slowly. You don't always have to use smoke, or at least I don't. If you're really, really careful and you move slowly, you should be okay. If that doesn't work for you, check your bees another day. Last thing you want to do is have a real serious situation on your hand with a fire. So you can get sparks coming out of this. On that note, what you really want is that cool white smoke. You don't want sparks coming out the end of this, or you'll burn your bees. So if it does get too hot and you have sparks coming out of here, get some nice new chips or soak some in water and put it on top and cool it down. So you get a nice cool white smoke. So come on over. Let's see what's going on with your bees. Hive tool. Let me just grab a hive tool real quick. I can tell a lot about what's going on inside the hive by looking at the outside. This is calmed right down. We have one bee out here in the front. It's not unusual to see bees dying on the porch like that. Usually it might have been a robber coming in. It might be just a sick bee. You watch, another bee will come along and pick that one up. There you go. And it'll get carried away.
Where did they take it?
They'll just drop it out here somewhere. Sometimes they'll fly off 100 yards or so and drop it. If you can't count the number of bees coming and going, it's a really good sign. If you're looking at the bees and they're bringing in lots of pollen, and they were earlier, they're not right now, you know you have a good queen in there. Listen to your hive. If it's really noisy, you've probably lost your queen. Smell your hive. If it smells like honey, that's a good sign. You should be able to smell honey a mile away. I do. If it smells sour, or it smells rotten or moldy, you've got a problem. And it could be mold, it could be foul brood, it could be any number of things. That's something to pay attention to. So use all of your senses. But most of all, if you can, grab a glass of wine every once in a while, sit down next to your hive, not right in front of it, and just watch for a while. Watch the bees coming and going. If you see a lot of activity, an unusual amount of activity, you've got one of two things going on. First and foremost is usually a orientation flight. New bees getting used to where the hive is. They come out of the hive en masse. They'll fly back and forth in a pattern like this. It'll last about 10 minutes, and then they'll all just pile back in. If they come out and they're doing figure eights and circles, and they're landing on the porch, and this is going on for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, and you look at the porch, and this is the porch out here, folks, and there's a lot of fighting going on. It looks like a war zone. You've got robbing bees, and you need to close up your entrance, and that's what I've done here. This is fall. We're in a dearth of nectar, and bees are after anything sweet they can get. So this hive was being robbed out earlier this week, and so I had to close down the entrance to help them protect the entrance to the hive. Evidence of that is right out here. You'll see all the dead bees, and these were the robbing bees, I hope, mostly, and that's what you get. You'll also see this occasionally out in front of your hive when they've swarmed. So keep an eye out and see what's on the ground in front of your hive. Pay attention. And within a few years of beekeeping, you're going to be able to tell more by looking at the entrance to your hive than you can tell by looking inside the hive. In the meantime, look at the entrance to the hive, do your inspection inside the hive, and try to correlate what you see outside with what you see inside. What are we going to look for inside the hive? First thing we're going to see is honey. We'll see full frames of honey in here, and then I'm going to work my way in till we see brood. If we're lucky, we'll spot the queen. Don't count on it though. It's maybe 1 in 10 times that I see the queen. I don't dig around trying to find her because you run the risk of squishing her. And I can't lose my queen this time of year. There are no queens available through the mail, and there are no drones out to mate with. So if I lose my queen this time of the year, I'm going to lose the hive. So, that said, take your smoke, Make sure you got a nice thick white smoke coming out of there, and just give them a couple of puffs. That's all it really takes, folks. A little bit under the cover. Give them a few seconds to settle down, and then you'll be ready to go inside the hive. You're not trying to fumigate your bees. Don't over smoke them. You can actually have the opposite effect, and you'll get the bees angry. So just a couple of puffs of smoke to mask that alarm pheromone, get them engorging themselves on honey, and you should be good to go. That's your inner cover. I always like to see a lot of bees up here. If we hadn't smoked them, this probably would have been covered. And the first thing you'd notice is all these bees that have their abdomen stuck up in the air with their stinger out. One, they would be releasing the alarm pheromone, and they'd be very angry. What you see here are some nice calm bees. They're really not in defense mode yet at all, and with any luck, they won't be. You can see a few guard bees. If you guys come over, right up here at the top, they start to stick their little heads out. Those are the guard bees. And they're looking for somebody to go after if things get exciting. So I'm going to give them one more little puff of smoke, get them to move down in.
Who figured out that smoke made them calm?
I don't know. I don't know who to give credit for that. It may have been Lorenzo Langstroth, but I'm not sure. And there, that's what a good healthy beehive looks like. On the outside, on the extremes, here and here, we're going to find honey. The queen will be in here someplace. So when we start to take the hive apart, we're always starting from the outside and working our way in to keep from squishing the queen. If you go in and you start here in the middle, the likelihood that you're going to squish your queen is pretty high, and more new beekeepers kill more queens than anything else. So let me just give them one more little puff of smoke. You'll see them move away from this. Down into the hive. I'm going to pry out this frame. We're going to see honey on this one. I'm going to go ahead and put my gloves on. This is their second time today, so they're going to probably be a little bit more defensive than they were earlier. Okay, girls.
Wow,
Okay.
great sound, isn't it?
That is a nice frame of honey. And now you can see the bees are getting a little defensive here. This is their second time for today. And I don't blame them for being a little defensive. So I'm going to be just moving nice and slow, trying to keep them calm. If things get really wild out here, folks, you're going to need to listen very carefully. It's not likely to happen, but don't take off your bee suits until I say it's cool. So, I'm going to get down in here. Once you have that one frame out, just gently pry these apart, make room, and then when you take these out, move them straight up if you can, particularly once you get to this spot, because this is where we're going to find the brood and potentially the queen is in here.
How do you know that?
Just experience. That is brood. Make sure you all get a good look at this. I'm looking for the queen. But you see all that brown there? And if you look on the periphery, you'll see little white things inside of those cells. Let me step down here. See that, honey? See down inside those cells, the little white things? Oh, right out here on the edge. Nope. Right in here. Down inside those cells, if you can see, there's little white curled up things. That is the larval stage. And that the capped off part is the pupal stage. So from that will emerge adult bees. Okay, let me make sure everybody gets a good look. Don't let me put this away until you, she can, but she'll usually come right back to the hive. Don't let me put this away until everybody's had a good look.
Christine.
I'm going to bring in another, but these girls are getting a workout. And twice in one day is a lot of inspection for them.
How often do you normally inspect?
Quite often, I don't inspect at all. And that's just my particular style. And I don't I inspect at the front of the hive. And I inspect by watching the entrance. And like I said, I can tell you more oftentimes about what's going on inside just by what I see on the outside. Most beekeepers want to go inside the hive. Some obsess about finding the queen. Definitely when you do your inspections, the first thing I'm looking for is capped brood and larvae to make sure that I have a good active queen. See, now they're getting a little stirred up. I just want to get them to move down a bit so I don't crush too many.